I really wanted to put together a series that I thought would be entertaining, fun, informative, and inclusive. And it's very hard to do that without other people physically being present, right? All in one group together. If you are not together, then you don't share the same local market, and that could bring up some unfairness potentially depending on where you live. If you live in a very small town, you don't have much at your disposal. Big city people have plenty at their disposal typically. So we put together a series called eBay Blitz. Who's we? It's myself, Danny from Nerd on a Budget, and Ozzy from Oz Talks Hardware. We think you're gonna really like this because it is, again, inclusive. It allows anyone to compete remotely as long as he or she has access to eBay. The premise is simple: build the best PC with the budget. In this case, $300. We wanted to keep it between myself, Danny, and Ozzy for the first season because we wanted to be able to hash out the rules, which we're gonna talk about next. So let's go ahead and get on into that. If you're upset about that inconsiderate Windows activation watermark plaguing your screen, snag an OEM license. SCDKey makes it simple. You have one in a few seconds for a little over $10, then click here, 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 and then here, paste your activation key, and you can kiss that watermark goodbye. And be sure to use my new offer code GSL for a 12% discount on your order. All right, so the gang's all here, and we're just gonna read off the rules one at a time, and if needed, vaguely justify why we included said rule, so that you guys know what our rationale is behind the parts choice. So Ozzy, I guess, can go ahead and start if you'd like.
So the first rule that we have is the budget. So we're only spending $300 on this computer, and it's for two main reasons. One, it doesn't break the bank, and it's attainable for most of our viewers. And two, it's challenging enough to make us actually work for the deals that we'll find.
The second rule is that we must only use eBay for the component purchases. This was kind of an arbitrary rule because technically we could have used like Amazon and Newegg and things like that. But just because we wanted to keep it all consistent, we chose to only use eBay because that does bring some challenges, as you'll see in our individual videos later.
Next rule, shipping must be included in the total budget. We decided to include shipping and not taxes, which we'll see later, because shipping is one of those costs that a lot of people don't tend to take into account in a budget, but is definitely a real expense.
So the fourth rule is that you cannot use any local pickups. Everything must be packaged and mailed physically to you.
And the next rule, Greg kind of mentioned earlier, was that we did not include taxes though, even though we did include shipping. And the reason for this is because some people don't have to pay taxes, and some people have different tax rates. So to make it fair, we just assumed that no one had to pay taxes, but do take into account that if you do have to pay for it, consider that in your total budget.
The next rule is one we kind of came up with actually as we were kind of hunting for parts, SATA cables and thermal paste.
So after that, we decided that we won't use coupon codes.
The next rule is that we were not going to allow pre-built PCs. So for example, no pre-built like HPs or Dell Optiplexes.
Yeah, the next rule ties into that as well. So all products purchased must be added to the final budget. So if an Optiplex costs $100, but you rip out a $20 power supply, you paid $100. So it's coming out of the overall budget.
And similarly, like if you buy a pre-built, just going off that example, you can't sell the parts in the pre-built or any of the components that you buy and then use the money that you gain from that transaction and add that to your budget.
For storage, we decided that the drive must be standardized and we would deduct the same amount from everybody.
We couldn't think of anything else to add in that respect. Like if you want to buy a CPU cooler, tack it into your budget. If you want to buy anything else.
Another important rule is we are not allowing mail-in rebates, which I absolutely love because I hate mail-in rebates. Most of the time, they don't work, at least in my personal experience.
The prices for components that come dead on arrival can be immediately reimbursed.
Next rule is the most important rule. Any RGB adds 1,000,000 points to the final score. We're not including the Windows 10 cost, and that's because you could run the entire system with the watermark without paying a dime.
You will get roasted for it, though.
That's true. You will get called out. Be prepared.
Every time. Something else that we discussed while we were shopping was what the line of a pre-built is. Out of the 7 components that make up a standard gaming computer, 4 of them you have to manually install yourself. So you can't buy a combo deal with 5 of the 7 components already pre-installed, and then you add, say, just the graphics card. That doesn't count.
The final rule is that the peripheral prices will not be included in the final budget. And that's just because we're talking about how much the build costs. You can spend however much you want on peripherals after the fact, but the $300 is just solely for the build. monitor, keyboard, mouse not included.
So we are weighing this purely on performance. So acoustics and thermals are not going to be evaluated directly. Now, of course, if your graphics card or your CPU is running hot, that's going to directly affect performance, but we're not going to actually test and record the temperature or the sound that's coming out of the case.
And then we're also not going to measure or kind of give weighting to aesthetics at all. So it's kind of up to our own discretion. It's just way too subjective and way too many variables to kind of consider to give a proper scoring to.
And then the testing suite, just to briefly run through that, we have 3 different software suites we're going to use. Cinebench R15, we chose that because depending on how old our hardware is, might not be great with R20, Superposition, which is just like a full-fledged GPU benchmark, and then 3D Mark Firestrike, which kind of is a mixture of both, although it will probably favor the graphics card a bit more. And then the scoring is all weighted based on the best performer in each category. So the highest Cinebench score will receive like a weight of 1, and then the lower scores will be a percentage of that highest score. And we have an example of it here. It's kind of vague. We just wanted to kind of simulate what would happen if supposedly the 3 of us got these scores here and then these scores and these scores, average them all up and then add them together, and it'll give you the winner. All 3 of these suites are weighted the same. So, your Cinebench score counts just as much as your Superposition score, and the same goes for 3D Mark Firestrike. We want to make sure that it was a level playing field in that respect. Those are the rules. And again, these are subject to change in the future, but I think we've already done most of our parts hunting. Apart from the way we benchmark, I think we're okay with the way that they are laid out here. And now it's up to all of us to see who has the best system.
Let us know who you think is going to win. I want to see what people think.
Yeah.
Since this is going to be on our individual channels, let us know in our individual comments, and then we'll probably hop around to each other's videos and check that out.
All right, now at this point, we're going to segue into my parts hunt. I hope you enjoy that. I'm going to try to explain the rationale behind why I'm choosing what, and we'll go from there.
So the first thing here is something we all agreed to buy. It's the exact same SU630 SSD. This is just a 240 gig SSD, and it costs, $29. We all agreed to buy this because storage is subjective. It would be fairly cheap to include a 1 terabyte hard drive later on in the process, but this would make for a good boot drive in a budget system, something like around $300. I still recommend you try for an SSD, even if you have to compromise somewhat on storage there. Like I said, it's easy to add a drive later on. Next, I'm going to look at the platform. I think it's important to get the platform out of the way first because it's probably going to be the most expensive thing depending on how we allocate the budget. 2 of the 3 tests are pretty GPU intensive though, right? Superposition is strictly GPU intensive, and 3D Mark Firestrike is also, I think, going to leverage the graphics score more so in its overall score calculation than the physics test, which is CPU dependent. So I think if we allocate more money to the graphics card, we'll be gold. Problem is there isn't much in the $1 to $150 US price range in the used market. I'm not seeing anything other than really 1060s and RX 480s, but we'll give it a shot. I'm going to look for a combo here. I'm going to try to find something that includes the motherboard, RAM, and CPU. See, this would be pretty good. I know these boards are really janky, but X5650 plus 8 gigs, plus a motherboard, plus a cooler for $100. Here's the problem, though. It's coming from Hong Kong, and that is not something that will fall into... this is unacceptable, and I won't be able to make that deadline. So we're gonna have to look elsewhere. Also, depending on, I just thought of something. What if we cross-fired cards? I know that's stupid for games, but like a vast majority, hey Pepsi, of games will not work well with Crossfire SLI. But 3D Mark Firestrike actually scales fairly well. And in fact, you can almost double your score by adding a second card. And I believe the same goes for Superposition. Because of just how we've structured these tests, just to be synthetic, I actually think that they are biased towards 2-card systems. So if that's the case, that rules out micro ATX. Most micro ATX boards won't have 2 full-length slots or even space for 2 full-length slots. So that's going to narrow the playing field quite a bit. That will also mean we need a more expensive case and a pretty beefy power supply to keep up with 2 cards. That's going to be super tough. I am not sure yet how that's going to work. I know that I want a Xeon, though. I want something like a 5650. 6 cores, 12 threads, and if I can overclock just a tiny bit, I think this will shred. This will get around 1,000 CB and Cinebench R15, which I think will be the winning score. This is going to sound really stupid, but what if we allocated most of the budget, like I said earlier, for 2 graphics cards? So 2 RX 470s, I was thinking, because they're weak enough that they're fairly cheap at this point, but they're also strong enough to where Crossfire actually does us a favor in these synthetics. $75 is not bad for a refurbished 474 gig. I think we can find cheaper things. See here, this is 477. Ooh, you know what? Going with a mining edition card might not be a bad idea. What if, like, see, this one's not bad. This is a 470. It's for $50. Granted, it's got a $12 shipping cost tacked onto it. A few other ones here are a bit more expensive. $80 for that plus $12 shipping. That, to me, that's not worth it. It's an 8 gig card, but still, you could get some 580s for that price. $84.99, still too high. $84.99, $79.99, then $10 shipping. So I'm going to make note of RX 470s, potentially crossfiring 2 of those. If we crossfire 2 and we pay $60 a pop, let's say we get a good deal or we win a bid, $60 each, that's $120. Plus the SSD is another $30. That's $150 right there. We need a case for $30. We need a power supply for $30. That's $60 more, $210. That leaves us with about $90 or so. Remember, we have to include shipping for the platform. So let's see what we can find for under $100. That includes a motherboard, CPU, and RAM. This is going to be, and a cooler, actually. Can't forget the cooler. We can also take another extreme approach. Like if we found a system like a pre-built that I know is not allowed technically, but if we took stuff out of that pre-built for cheap and then bought a really crappy case and then included the drive, which would be our third thing, and then included a graphics card, that's 4 unique parts. So we could still buy a pre-built and just rip stuff out of it. We could rip the entire platform out of it, including the power supply, give it a new case, and then a new graphics card, and there we go. We're well within the rules. So potentially like a Dell Optiplex. I hate to go this route because it's like the de facto route, but maybe we can find something like a Core i5 or a Core i3 21 whatever, and then throw a 980 Ti in it. Because you can get 980 Ti's, 1070s for around $180 to $200. If we can get everything else for $100, then we would crush the graphics test. And because the graphics tests are weighted more or less in 2 of the 3 tests, I think we would make up for the loss on the CPU side. Our Cinebench score is going to be pretty bad. I'll have to do the math. We'll have to figure it out. So, okay, Core i3 comes with 4 gigs of DDR3. Look, that's all we need. Honestly, that's all we need. Problem is, this kind of system is not going to have a beefy enough power supply or even the connectors in that power supply for discrete graphics. I'm just going to assume that out of the gate. This one here might, because this is looks like a mid tower possibly. Let's see, $60. This isn't bad. We could do this and then just throw the beefiest graphics card we can into it. So this looks like a micro ATX build. Power supply might be good enough, but knowing these optiplexes, it might not. Is it listed down here? Let's see. Scrap it. I changed my mind. I don't like this idea. I think that the real issue is Firestrike leveraging the CPU a bit more than I initially thought. You can see, like, for example, this is a Core i5 3570K and a 980 Ti. 980 Ti is going to destroy an RX 480, which is going to score around 13,000 on the graphics side. But if I pair that graphics card with a Core i3, then my physics score is going to be garbage. So I'm not really doing myself a solid by throwing all of my eggs into the graphics card basket. Even though I know it will destroy in superposition, I don't think it will really make up any more ground in Firestrike. Maybe a small bit, but I'm going to get so destroyed in the Cinebench tests that I just don't think a Core i3 is worth it. Now, potentially a Core i5. Core i5 could do it, but I think these run a bit more expensive. See, $74, $75, $70, $80. This is, it's too much because at that point I have to drop down to something like an RX 480 or 580. And I know that at least one of them is going to pair their graphics card with a Xeon. Like, I know it's going to be a 6-core Xeon. That's what's going to win. Another thing I want to check out, the power supply here. This is, wow, 680 watt for $35. I got a strong feeling this is not going to be the best performing power supply for the price. And it's probably going to kill something in the long run. Yeah, Kaotech. I don't even know what that is. I've never heard of that company. 650 watt for this one. That's $35. Here's a Raid Max Scorpio. This isn't bad. $35 for a 735 watt. It's a new listing. 80 plus bronze. This isn't bad. That's 30. Yeah, plus shipping. That's around $36 for a decent. Well, look at that, semi-modular too. Jeez. So power supply is not too bad. Let's assume we're going with an ATX platform though, and looking for an ATX case. I wonder what we're going to have at our disposal here. So this is micro ATX, no good. This is ATX. This is what, $32.99 for a Rosewell. Doesn't look the prettiest, but no, it's mini. It's a mini tower, so that's only micro. Okay. There's a mid tower, $55. Yeah, not going to happen. How about we sort from lowest to highest? Obviously, none of this is going to do. That's a sponsored post. Let's see. How about a DIY PC case? These are always pretty cheap. Let's see. 21. Look at that. $22 and then $102 for shipping. That seems legit. This is also a micro ATX tower. This is also a micro ATX. Here's a mid tower. Finally, 20. Wow, look at that. $25 plus $7 shipping is $32. So that's pretty good. Probably going to be one of these cases that I end up buying, either the blue or the red one. I'll just try to color coordinate with the motherboard. So the case isn't going to be too expensive, seeing as though we have to go with a mid tower. It's better than I thought it would be. So that leaves me with just the platform, and there are several ways to approach this. I mean, look, I could go with something like an E5300, just be absolute dog crap for modern gaming. But I could do, there's a lot here. I could go for a cheap platform, expensive graphics card, although we kind of ruled that out based on how the scoring works. Here's a Core i3 550 plus RAM plus motherboard for $60. Not bad, but I think we could definitely do that. Actually, that is kind of a bad deal. I think for $60 you could probably get a lot better than that. There are just not many Xeon combos to choose from. 3430, not going to cut it. I really don't know what I'm going to do at this point. I think in the next video, I'm just going to show you guys what I ended up buying and kind of hope it all works. But I'm not really enthusiastic about the platforms. I just don't. I think the only viable option is to look at combos. This one's okay. X58 EVGA, and this is $80 or best offer. Not bad. So if I pair this with like a $9 or $10 Xeon 6-core, and then I'd have to probably short the board though, I think, for Xeon compatibility here, if I recall correctly. So this it's a possibility. If I could talk them down to $60, $10 for a CPU, and then $20 for decent memory, we're only on DDR3 here, might be pretty good for under $100. This platform could do it. Just depends. I'm going to put some offers out, and I'm going to let you guys know what I end up deciding on in the next video. And in that video, we'll also build the system and then try to benchmark it. And then we'll be able to, reference each other's videos, see who came out on top, see who won, and then we'll all reconvene in a third video and reveal our parts choices to each other, because we're not going to know that until later. So it'll be really fun. Thank you guys for shopping with me. And yeah, I'm going to cross my fingers on some of these offers and bids, because I'm gonna need some help from the eBay gods if I want to win this. There doesn't seem to be too much out there. The good thing though, that I know in the back of my head, the other guys are also having the same problems more than likely, unless they already have something in mind that's available at will. But I think X58 is going to win it. I think that's what it takes to win. There isn't too much right now in a decent price range. So probably going to have to buy parts separately, and that's going to take a bit more time and probably cost a bit more money. And then we can find a decent graphics card. I think we're going to have to go the RX 480 or 580 route if we go with an X58 platform. We'll have a good system. It might not win, but I don't think it'll be the worst system either. So that's all I'm going for. I just don't want to be the loser. That would be awesome. Thank you guys for watching. Click the thumbs up button if you like this one. If you like the series, if you're excited about who's going to win, let us know in the comments below. And I will catch you in part 2, episode 2. That's coming out in a week's time, I believe. Thank you all for watching. My name's Greg. Thanks for learning with me.